Asia is home to some of the world's largest and most powerful rivers. Many of these rivers originate on what is known as the Tibetan Plateau. This is an area located within China which contains tens of thousands of glaciers and other geographical features that serve as the headwaters for some of the largest rivers in the region. Rivers like the Yellow and Yangtze rivers, which flow across China to the Pacific, begin here, but also the Mekong River, which winds its way through much of Southeast Asia and on through Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, and finally through the lower Vietnam Delta and into the South China Sea. The Mekong River is particularly important as this river winds along a 4,500 kilometer route and brings with it much needed fresh water to some 66 million people in the surrounding areas that depend upon this river each and every day. What makes the Mekong unique is that its steep descents create an ideal setting for hydroelectric power to be generated, and thus the creation of large dams along much of the river has occurred. Countries like China that are lucky enough to control the source of large rivers like the Mekong will not only use them for rich supplies of fresh water, but also for generating massive amounts of electricity with hydropower. However, when poor river management occurs, like in this particular case, the other neighboring countries downstream will often bear the brunt of reckless decision-making from their upstream neighbors. You see, if the countries nearest the source take up too much of the river's flow, the consequences endured by the countries downstream can be catastrophic. Without enough water, crops will not be able to grow and native fish populations will disappear completely. The problem now is that the Mekong River does not contain enough water to go around. In fact, the Mekong River within the last year has faced some of its lowest recorded levels ever since records began being collected some 60 years ago. Much of this is due to the fact that China has already built 11 massive dams across the main river and has plans for 8 more in the very near future. This is also not to mention that downstream states have plans to build 7 additional dams themselves to add to the already 2 that are operational today. The Chinese dams, which are massive, produce a whopping 21,300 megawatts of electricity, and in order to do this, they must hold back a lot of water. If you take just the 2 largest Chinese dams alone, they can store almost as much water as the entire Chesapeake Bay, located on the east coast of the United States, an area that covers more than 11,000 square kilometers. Despite the amazing amount of power produced, however, these dams are already having major effects on the health health of the Mekong. For instance, just last year alone, the river ran so low during a drought that Cambodia had to completely turn off their large hydropower plant due to a lack of water flow. This caused the nation to endure months of debilitating electricity blackouts and caused major disruptions to the Cambodian economy. In addition to this, the altered water flow was so little that salt water from the sea actually intruded into the Mekong Delta, devastating Vietnamese farmland and caused fishing stocks in Cambodia to be depleted by up to 90%, which is a huge deal because the fish from the river make up 2/3 of the protein for the average Cambodian's diet. Although a disappointing rainy season can certainly be attributed to some of these struggles, a fair amount of the blame also rests upstream within China. With the many dams constructed over the past couple of decades, the natural flow of the river has been greatly interrupted.